It's Monday, December 18th. I'm Geoff Schwartz. It's Geoff Schwartz. You're smart. You were live on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Monday, we're brought to you by Prize Picks. It's a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. Go to Prize Picks and use code GSSY for a first deposit match up to $100. You pick 2 to 6 players. If they'll go more or less than the Prize Picks projection, we're up to 25 times your money in any entry. And as usual, for Monday Night Football, we will be making our entry for the game. It is the Seahawks. It is the Eagles. Quarterbacks at time of taping unknown. But Gabe, we're going to make it work anyways, and we're going to have the Prize Picks for you at the end of the show. As usual, on Monday, we'll recap what happened in the National Football League and also a college football story, a quote from Chip Kelly, fairly interesting about maybe the future of college football and how it should look. We'll talk about that. Right now, Oregon's getting a bunch of commits. USC's getting a bunch of decommits, Gabe. It's a rough time for you. The Jets are out of the playoffs. USC basketball, not great right now. USC football, decommits. Chargers fired their coach. We got to go find you new teams, Gabe.
Maybe I'm the problem, Geoff. Maybe it's me.
Maybe you're the problem. No,
I think it's starting to feel like I'm the consistent thing between all the teams that struggle the most. But listen, Geoff,
yes,
we got through 8 crazy nights, and you came out of it with a new friend, a new puppy.
Yeah, my dog. So he's right off camera right here. I'm gonna let him stay down there. So here's what happened. I've always wanted one dog in life, just one. I wanted a German Shepherd. That's all I've wanted. And we have said for a while that we would get a German Shepherd that is like fully trained. Because my wife is not so much a dog person. We had a dog previous to having my son, and we had a dog and a cat. And then we got too busy and life got crazy. And we had our son, and we gave the dog to a friend who had a big yard and whatnot. Gave the cat away. The cat's still alive. He's 13 years old. He's like no teeth. Our friend has him. And we just it was not time to have an animal. We were traveling. I was playing football. I was in Detroit. And so I always said one day I want a fully grown German Shepherd that's trained. And Ryan Khalil, former center for the Panthers, had one as well. He had a dog named Hawk. He was incredible. 100-pound German Shepherd, beautiful dog. And so a month ago, I think it was a Saturday morning, my wife goes, "Hey, look, I wasn't going to tell you, but I'm sure you'd ask questions if I disappeared on a Saturday morning for 4 hours. So here's what I'm doing. I found someone who trains world-class German Shepherds up about an hour north of North Carolina. I'm going to the farm today, and I'm just don't get your hopes up. I'm just looking, dude. She came back in love with the dog, with Foe, who we have here. That was his name they gave him because all the litters go by letters, so they know how old they are. F letter. They have a kid on the farm that names him Foe. I'm not even sure it comes to his name quite yet, but we got him Saturday. I went out to the farm a couple weeks ago too. Dude, you get exactly what you pay for. It's not cheap, but this dude is unbelievable, Gabe. Unbelievable. Listens to commands. He has a place, a little bed, dude. If you put him in his bed and you give him the command, dude will not move. Move. So it's all we wanted was just a pet that did what we had. We didn't want to train a pet. We've had our kids. We're not doing puppy again, kid again. The funniest part was my daughter was in shock. She did not touch the dog when we got, and my daughter loves animals. We brought him over Saturday, and my daughter wouldn't. She was just stood there, and we're like, Emmy, this is your dog, and she just didn't know what to do. Then left the house, went to our neighbor's house for 4 hours, came back and was like, I want to see the dog now. We're like, okay, well, here he is. She's totally cool about him now, but yeah, man, here he is. He's here. He's just hanging out. Stop.
And so his name is it pronounced or spelled F-A-U-X?
No, F-O.
F-O. Oh, F-O. All right, that's easy.
Fo, yeah. But he doesn't really come to it. So I don't know. Stop biting cords. So we've noticed so far in 2 days that his only puppy when you put his leash on him, he turns into a working dog. But when his leash is off, he turns full puppy. He's he tries to bite stuff and whatnot. Getting to go potty is interesting still, but he's a good boy, man.
All right, so if all of a sudden in the middle of the show today your mic goes out, it's because Foe bit through a cord.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that though. But I could give him a command to just stay. He should get away from the cords, buddy. Okay, go over here. Just go over here. It's the first time in my office. He'd never been upstairs till yesterday. He car rides. I'm trying to get him desensitized to car rides, and he's just terrified of the car. I have to pick him up to put him in there. But I'm like my kids want. my kids want to take them on car rides. Like they want to go with them like to school. They want to have them go to all the stuff we do. I took him on a car ride to the pharmacy today. I just got to desensitize him. Come here, buddy. To cars.
All right, let's take a shot of that full and look at that dog. Well, because you're very happy. You got a sweet look on your face. You got a handsome dog with you. Life is good in the Schwartz family. So I hate to do this, but I have to bring it up. Your Chiefs, even though they won, they still look like crap, and their quarterback is still pissed at their receivers. Kadarius Toney, I mean, man, like I think Foe there studies the playbook a little better than Kadarius does, and it seems to have pissed Pat off a little bit. So, I'm looking at the AFC and I see the Bills creeping up, and I see the Dolphins absolutely dominating the Jets, and I'm not so sure, Geoff, about your team even after the win over one of the worst Patriots teams of all time.
Yeah, well, look, Mahomes has done very well in sort of hiding emotions for the season, right? Like even after the MVS drop against the Packers, he's like, "Yep, should have thrown the ball better." Look, all season sort of just like been the good champion for the Chiefs. Andy Reid has said publicly, I got to call better plays, I do this and that. But we saw last week the temper tantrum after the Bills game. And I told you guys, I thought it was more about the anger about the offense than it was just about, the referees essentially. Right. And he had to just find a way to like let off steam. And then that Toney thing, I mean, he looked like he was in emotional distress, which again, I mean, I would be too. The dude dropped a wide open pass to another interception. And Gabe, if he doesn't do that, the game was 24-7 at that point. It's probably just a drubbing, right? I mean, if he doesn't do that, they get a first down, the ball's moving down the field, and then just the game is, 31-14, and like that's the end of it?
I can tell you firsthand it screwed up a lot of fantasy games. I could have used those points.
It becomes 31-10, right? Like it makes the game completely different if he catches that football. So it just, I mean, that's, I don't know.
There's a lot riding on Rashee Rice.
No, sorry. Right? It was 7-7 at that point. I thought it was a different point of the game. They held them to only 3 points, I believe, on that play. But nonetheless, it's just not good.
No, it's terrible. Rashee Rice is their savior, I guess, at this position. It's not Justin Watson. It doesn't seem to be Justin Ross. I think most of us are pay attention to this Chiefs receivers more as fantasy owners than as diehard fans or X and O guys like you. But I don't know, dude. Like, I think you gotta make statements when you go and play up in New England. And sure, the final score was pretty impressive, but some of those drives, like Kelsey just, when did he become a flopper? When did Travis Kelsey become a guy who needs help looking great? Like, he hasn't looked great in weeks. And forget Taylor Swift, who cares, the memes, whatever. Like, he just doesn't look like the same player. Is he hurt? Yeah. What's going on?
Well, he was hurt. Remember, he's hurt to start the season. And I feel like he just hasn't come over that because he's 33 years old, 34 years old. Really, I think we should all agree that we should be glad that he has decided that practice is critical, and he avoided going to his girlfriend's birthday party because practice was critical and important to success. It is funny seeing like non-football fans trying to figure out like the relationship between Kelsey and Taylor Swift. It's pretty funny. But
doesn't it make you think though? Sorry to interrupt you, Geoff. Doesn't it make you think though that we must be equally stupid when it comes to like Hollywood stuff? Like, we look at it and we're like, yeah, she could just go to Lambeau if she feels like it. And meanwhile, anyone who knows anything about her business would be like, right, that would cost her $100 million because then she would have to cancel this.
But I think most NFL people are like, oh, she has a concert today. Oh, I guess she can't go to the game. I don't know. I feel like that's a normal reaction. The reaction to them, like her not going to a game for NFL people. Yeah. I bet a lot of people are probably like, great, we don't have to see her in the stands. If it's a much different reaction than if he just didn't show up to, if he didn't show up to her birthday party, people would question Travis Kelsey more than they would question her for not being in his game.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, either way, lingering injuries and the just difficulty of recovering when you're getting into the back third of your career. You're saying that's all there is with Kelce. So would you imagine that when they stumble their way into the postseason, and they may end the season on a 4-game winning streak, but when they stumble their way into the postseason as the 2 or the 3 seed, when it comes time to go to Baltimore or go to Miami, which increasingly looks like what's going to happen, you think Travis Kelce just like puts some tussin on it and goes out and does Travis Kelce things, or is this a problem for the rest of the way?
So, there's a very real possibility the Chiefs have the 1 seed, right? Like, I think that's not.
I know these crazy kooky scenarios. No,
I mean, is it kooky? Baltimore has to lose twice. They have the Niners and Dolphins the next 2 weeks. Right?
But then that means the Dolphins win. So
the Chiefs have the tiebreaker of the Dolphins, though. So the Dolphins have to lose one more game this weekend in Dallas, and the Chiefs are right there. Just letting everyone know they're right there.
Yeah, I know. So the Chiefs have to win out. All those things have to happen. The Chiefs could end up with the 1 seed, but you're saying, wow, Miami might lose in Dallas. Again. Do you really think they're going to lose to Dallas after what you saw from Dallas and the Bills?
I do. We can get to that if we want to do that now or later. But
let's do it, because your crazy theories on how the Chiefs end up as the 1 seed, I think, are not worth.
No, I think. Look, I think at this point it's very clear the Chiefs are not whole on offense, and until they prove week after week that they can generate offense, they're probably not winning the AFC conference right now. Pretty simple.
No, and so they'll have to win a game or two on the road in the postseason, which we think they can do. We probably still like them better than Lamar, even in Baltimore, even in late January. But, we got to find out. So let's talk about those Cowboys, because they did Cowboys things right when we started to get fooled into thinking, well, no, they have a defense and Dak's playing the best football of his life. Maybe they really are the Cowboys we've waited for 30 years. They're not. They got smacked by the Bills, who just a month ago we were all like, they're not even a playoff contender. I don't know what to make of it. We can talk about the Bills side or the Cowboys side. You tell me, but I have thoughts on the Bills.
Well, we'll talk about both, obviously. Let's start with the positive, the Bills. But it is crazy because the Bills right now are the 9 seed in AFC. They're not even in the playoffs at the moment. Now, their schedule lines up pretty good for them to be a playoff team, possibly if other things work well, but their schedule is pretty decent for that. So my dog's eating my carpet right now.
You seem very distracted right now, Geoff.
He's like, I promise you, he's been so good today. Like I have he was just sleeping a second ago, and now he's like trying to eat my carpet. The Bills have the 4th best odds to win the AFC Championship, plus 450 as of right now. To win the Super Bowl, they're the 7th best odds. They're not even in the postseason right now, Gabe, which is insane. Yeah. But look, here's the test, right? If you are a team in the playoffs, and Buffalo was coming to town to play you, would you be excited for that game? The answer is no, because what we saw the last 2 weeks, especially defensively, is better than what we've seen most of the year, which is a big bonus because they have not played well on defense, right? Part of it is that they have all the injuries. Played well last week, well against Kansas City. Now, again, I mean, look, the Chiefs, blew that play, and maybe things are different if they don't blow that play. But they're playing good ball, man. Put it like that. Josh Allen's doing the right thing. And I think the thing we've seen the last month is that the fire of Ken Dorsey with Joe Brady, the OC, they're running the football. I mean, James Cook was incredible yesterday. That adds a new dynamic to that team. And what impressed me the most about the Bills yesterday was what I think Dallas has to worry about. But we'll get to the Dolphins game in a second. They got out physical, Gabe. They got pushed around, which Buffalo doesn't do offensively often. When you watch them play, you don't think to yourself, oh, this is the offense that pushes people around. But they did. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They were more physical on both sides of the ball. And they shut down a Cowboys team that was playing really well. That Buffalo team, the one we saw yesterday, which again, I mean, no guarantee it's going to be that team that we see each week, which is the problem with Buffalo, right? Like I think they host the Chargers this week. Are we sure we're getting that same Buffalo team against a bad football team? I don't know. It's sort of the games they lose, right, Gabe? That Buffalo team can win any game this season. I think outside of the Niners, who I think right now are just a juggernaut. But I mean, look, again, the Buffalo Bills lost to the Broncos. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Patriots. I mean, they had bad losses, right, Gabe? So I really think that there's an opportunity here for Buffalo to, if they win out, man, they're scaring the playoffs.
Yeah, okay. And now all of a sudden the cool thing to say is that Josh Allen, who was, the source of all their problems a couple months ago, is back in the MVP race. At least Dan Orlovsky thinks that. Now, we like Dan. Most of the times we bring Dan up on this show, it's because he said something smart, had a good take. He was saying, or he thought that Josh Allen could be the MVP before this win. Josh didn't put up anything special in terms of stats, but he did beat Dak, who had just become the number one guy. That was the consensus take maker opinion. Obviously we can't forget Brock Purdy and his own running back, Christian McCaffrey. But are we just trying to breathe the Josh Allen MVP thing into existence, or is that a real take?
No, Brock Purdy's winning the MVP.
Okay.
We just got to stop this. Look, I know that maybe I'm late to the Brock Purdy train, even though I have some money on him to win the MVP, so I'm good with that. But Brock Purdy is going to win the MVP. He is number one in every statistical category for a quarterback. I know that they have a great offense. I know that they play a certain style of football that we've seen help quarterbacks throughout the years, Gabe. But he's elevating the offense. He is a reason why they're playing so well. And at some point, you have to just admit that he's the MVP. Now, again, I get it. Would you draft him over Josh Allen? No, you wouldn't do that. But that's not what the award is. The award is who's the most valuable player. And that's not always value, of course, because that depends. But he's playing the best quarterback in the NFL right now, Gabe. And I'm not sure Josh Allen could do anything last month of the season to make that to change that unless Brock Purdy plays Baltimore. I think it's New Year's Eve and just has the worst game of his career. And maybe people change their minds. But Brock Purdy, to me, is going to win MVP. He has done enough. Excuse me, that game is on Christmas. I'm sorry. It's on Christmas. Ravens-Niners. So it's next week. That to me, next Monday night, that would be the one way that Brock Purdy does not win the MVP, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll be a fun thing to debate for, playoffs there. Which Niners player deserves the MVP more? Not even which quarterback, but which of the best players on the Niners deserve the MVP. The guy who's sort of fallen out of the MVP race and may not even play tonight. You touched on it at the top of the show. We don't really know what the quarterback situation is going to look like with the Eagles and Seahawks tonight. Obviously, by the time some people listen, it'll be clear. But what's going on with Philly? They're in a bit of a tailspin. I read here that Matt Patricia still has a job.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird. But he's going to be calling defensive plays? What?
You know how this works, man. They always have, the coaching fraternity just gives guys jobs over and over again.
That guy. Nobody likes that guy.
Yeah. It feels like they're just trying to find some answer on defense to why it's not working. And maybe that different play caller, but I don't really think that it's a play calling issue. I just don't think they're playing as well as they did last season. And maybe tonight's the way to break this out, because you have a situation where you're playing a Seahawks team might not have their quarterback. So maybe tonight, but they just haven't played, great football. I mean, it's kind of simple. They just haven't played how they played last season. They're not rushing the passer quite the same. They're not stopping the run quite. It's just not been as good. And that's just this is why Super Bowl windows are so short, because you typically, the defense especially, year in and year out, high variance. There's a lot of regression that happens on defense, and they're not making up offensively because they're just not as good on offense. And that to me is what's happening with the Eagles. It's not like a crazy thing I don't think it's a play calling issue. We'll find out, and Matt Patricia is able to do that. But then again, Matt Patricia has never, been a great defensive coordinator. It's Bill Belichick who was calling plays. In the year that Matt Patricia was the DC, and I think he was there for a couple of years, Nick Foles beat him in the Super Bowl game. So it's not going to change anything because Matt Patricia is there. But the Seahawks aren't very good right now. They lost 4 in a row. I don't think they win tonight. So it might not matter. They're still going to win the division and play a Cowboys team. The Cowboys will be the 5th seed. And they'll still have the 1 seed. It will all work out in the end. They'll have the 1 seed.
Well, all right. You're saying that you think that the Chiefs can get the 1 seed in the AFC. I think that suggests that anything is still possible over on the NFC side. I'm not sure I'm really willing to give it to the Eagles, especially if they're going to Matt Patricia in a meaningful role. But we're going to come back to that game because we have to get some picks from you shortly on that one. I want to bring up one last topic before we take our first break and come back and talk about some college stuff. That's fun. Here's the game. You're allowed to talk about one of these teams that we have previously banned from being discussed. All right? And the reason is that these damn teams keep winning and keep forcing us to wonder if they're relevant or not. Now, I happen to believe that none of these teams matter, and we're better off saving the time, but this is a football show, and these teams won, so here we go. Joe Flacco and the Browns. Jake Browning and the Bengals. Baker and the Bucks. Stroud and the Texans. Minshew and the Colts. What are we talking about here?
Let's do Browns. Let's do Browns.
Really interesting.
By the way, Colts, Texans, and Jaguars are all tied in the AFC South right now, 8-6. By the way,
don't care.
Let's do Browns. Look,
great.
The reason why I think a lot of us are rooting for the Bills to make the playoffs is so we don't end up with Joe Flacco, Jake Browning, and Gardner Minshew in the playoffs, right? Like we're hoping that we get something else. The Browns should not have won that game. They did not play well against the Bears. And Flacco kind of reverted back to what we've seen from Flacco over the years. But in the end, made enough plays and got it done. And dude, the defense is really good, as we know, number one in the NFL in DVOA. And offensively, Flacco is doing enough. Now, again, this is not a team that's winning multiple playoff games. It's not a team that is going to do playoff damage. But it's worth pointing out that he is the Browns and Stefanski coaching them are playing good ball, man. Like it's the truth. They're playing good football. They're winning a lot of football games, and they're doing it with a bunch of backups. Their offensive line right now is down 2 tackles. Excuse me. Their best player left got hurt yesterday. Joe Bitonio did not finish the game. And they're playing with Joe Flacco, like their 4th quarterback of the season. And yet they keep grinding away, man. They keep making plays. They keep winning games. I don't know. When you play good defense, you run the football, I guess. But they should not be playing this well. Put it like that.
Fair enough. And so I think what all these teams have in common is our coach of the year is coming from one of them, right? Has to. I mean, this is their 4th quarterback to get a win this year. Yeah. I don't think that's ever happened before. Meanwhile, Jake Browning, I should have played him in fantasy this week. I didn't. I played Patrick Mahomes. Should have played Browning. He keeps on doing it. And I'm going back to my take. I know I said we couldn't talk about 2 teams. I'm going back to my take here. I think this is every week. This is making it even more obvious that Joe Burrow is a good player, but not an all-time great player.
Possibly, even though, again, just like the Browns, the Bengals should have lost that game. I mean, Minnesota was up 17-3. I mean, it was those sneaks, those back-to-back quarterback sneaks were just atrocious. But Jake Browning, they scored 24 points in the 4th quarter and overtime. Like they took that game from the Vikings. Speaking about fantasy, the league we're in, I'm in 11th place, but somehow I had a bye this week. I'm not quite sure why.
I think that just means your season's over.
No. It says next week I'm playing someone in the bracket.
I don't know, man.
I'm very confused.
We got some people behind the scenes who might need to explain that one. I don't know.
But I'm not very good. And I only my team this week has 30 points. It's not good, buddy.
No, that's not good at all. You need to focus a little bit more on fantasy. But you know why you don't have time for it? Because you're giving us winning picks. Yeah, you're giving us winning picks. You're making smart plays. You're analyzing the game in a way that very few can as a former player and a guy who understands the numbers. So when we come back from a break, please give us some Monday night picks and please help me understand what might have been the most brilliant idea any coach has ever had. And it came from Chip Kelly, a guy I would not call brilliant.
Oh, I think he's very bright.
All right. Very good. You got an Oregon connection. Well, we'll come back and we'll do some college and we'll do some picks.
All right, we're back. We're going to talk a little bit about our prize pick selections for Monday Night Football. Before we do that, breaking news, the Commanders have released their long snapper, Cameron Cheeseman, who I think was actually drafted by the Commanders, and he said yesterday after the game, he didn't play very well, that he would have cut himself if he was coaching the team. So, I mean, I think when you say that, you're probably not going to be around. I mean, that's an all time, like, you just can't. He was drafted in the 6th round in 2021. How can you draft a long snapper in the 6th round?
Yeah, I don't know, but I also know like long snappers play for like 20 years, so he really not doing
the
it
one
right.
the Panthers, JJ Jansen, is been here since 2009.
Yeah.
Once
you get good at that, and very few people want that job, that's your job.
Oh, it's
nobody can touch you, right? Like you're good.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we get some picks for Monday night? And then with the time we have left, we'll get into this Chip Kelly soundbite and all the implications. But give me some winners for tonight's game.
Okay, so Prize Picks is doing like a promo right now, so you're able to get yourself some adjusted numbers right now. So it's kind of fun. Let me pull this up right here. They have a Demons and Goblins. They indicate non-standard payouts, so a little bit fun here. So you get some adjusted numbers here. As you guys know, go to Prize Picks. Promo code GSSY, first deposit match up to $100. You choose 2 to 6 players for your square, more or less than their projections. Last week you mocked me, even though Tyreek Hill got hurt, so that kind of screwed out my square. But the Will Levis over rushing game, you mocked me and it hit like in the first quarter, just FYI.
It did, right away.
Here's what we're doing here.
Good point.
I get 2 adjusted numbers for the Eagles. Ready? Jalen Hurts, more than 24.5 rushing yards. Great number. Fantastic. And DeAndre Swift, more than 39.5 rushing yards. And the reason why I'm going Eagles rushing attack is here's why I think. Is you have a game, Gabe, where they're finally playing someone who's not one of the best teams in the NFL, obviously the Seahawks. I think they get back to their roots tonight. They just run the football the entire game. Like they just try to smash Seattle into oblivion because that is what they have to do to win the game and sort of feel like the Eagles football again, right? So just go down the field and just roll up the Seahawks run defense. So those are good adjusted numbers. And DK Metcalf, more than 57.5 receiving yards because Eagles secondary is stinky and allows up a ton of yards. So that's more of a play, I think, where like they're behind and they need a bunch of yards at the end of the game and they're able to just kind of make it happen with DK. I'm not sure this happens in the 3rd quarter. I think it's a 4th quarter play right here where he just gets a bunch of yards late in the game. So Jalen Hurts more than 24.5 rush yards. DeAndre has more than 39.5 rush yards. DK Metcalf, more than 57.5 receiving yards. And I think that pays like 2.5 to 1. So I'll take that. Adjusted number there. Those adjusted numbers.
I like it. I just have to point out the obvious that, we're not 100% on whether Jalen is 100%. So my question is,
but it's not a physical injury though. It's a poop attack or something, right?
Yeah. So that's my question is, in a scenario where your quarterback's just not feeling great, all right, flu game type situation, is it easier for him to play a game where they just pound it in the run, or is it easier to throw? Like, what's more exhausting on a quarterback?
So the way I look at injuries is, I've been the guy who's been injured a lot of my career, is the coaches, if you're on the field, the coaches basically call a game like you're 100%.
Right.
They just do. Unless you're like a quarterback who goes into a game with a leg injury and they have to just protect you the entire game. But they're going to go into a game calling a regular offense. Like if Hurts plays, which I think he will, you just have to suck it up, Gabe. That's part of playing ball. They're not going to be like, yo, you know what? Quick game. We're not moving you all. Like they have to run their offense. So I don't think I do not think that that's something that really we would take into consideration when it comes to this. Now, I guess if he doesn't play, this gets voided. So I'm going to live here, but there's no Marcus Mariota numbers. So I have to take what I could get.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, nice job by the Eagles in the offseason. In a season where half the quarterbacks in the league are gone, injured in some way, they have a backup who could have started for, I don't know, a dozen teams in the league at the beginning of the year and would be starting for 20 teams right now. And he's their backup. Good on them. He also seems like a similar enough player to Jalen that it kind of makes sense.
Dude, it is crazy to me how more teams just aren't prepared with a backup quarterback that can win. Like, is Mariota going to win you a championship? Probably not.
Probably not.
But what he's going to do is he will get you, he'll get you through a couple weeks if you need to, a series or two, right? A half. The amount of teams that don't have this, Jets, it's kind of mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it is. Also, Marcus Mariota, by all accounts, is a good guy and a good teammate.
He's awesome. I had the chance, fortunately, to be around him a little bit. He's fantastic. I'll tell you about the Mariota story one time where I was, I've seen him more recently just than I did when I was playing, but I never met him before. I never been to Oregon. I never met him before. I've never been to Oregon when he was there. And I saw him at the Super Bowl like 5 years ago, like Radio Row. You know how there's just a big, mass of humans over there. And I was like, "Hey, man, Geoff Schwartz, nice to meet you. Like, thanks for everything you do for Oregon, blah blah blah." And he was like a second year in the NFL. He goes, "Oh yeah, no, Geoff, I know who you are, man." I'm like, "No, you don't. You don't have to pretend. We never crossed paths." Never played each other. I never saw you at Oregon. There's no recognition of me anywhere. There's my name is on one little thing in the facility of like pro guys drafted. Like that's it. That's my only connection to the facility. And he just was great about it. He made me feel good. He's like, you know what? I know who you are. So he's a really good dude. The game tonight, we'll see if it's Drew Lock and Mariota, it's obviously not the best matchup, but this was the Chiefs Patriots was flexed out. That would have been tonight's game without Monday Night Football flex scheduling.
Yeah, well, I mean, this has the potential to be more interesting than that. We'll see who plays. All right, let's talk about college football because this was all over my timeline. I suspect yours as well. It's pretty close to home for you. So Chip Kelly, now at UCLA, though nobody would have even noticed, he was asked about the future of college football, generally speaking, and went on what I would call the most composed and thought out rant I've heard a coach give in a long time, and made a lot of points that seemed right to me, but I want to hear your take. So why don't we play this soundbite from Chip Kelly? It's about 2 minutes long. Let's play this for the audience, and on the back end, we'll pick it apart beat by beat. Sound good?
Yes.
I think
all right, here's Chip Kelly.
I think we need to have a conference commissioner. And I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power 5, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of 5. And we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams.
All right. Well, he went on even more than that, got into transfer portal and NIL and everything else. But let's start there. Any notes?
Well, I took some notes down. So he has said this before, by the way, but there's not like in this national sort of setting before a bowl game. Okay, so and he said in the clip too, like I've thought about this for a while, it certainly sounds like he has. So this is what we've talked about, though, Gabe, in sort of when the conference realignment talk was happening about whether or not we were going to this model of football only, right? This like big power conference of football teams, even tiered, where like you have the big spenders, the medium spenders, the small spenders, and it was separate of everything else. Just and we're going there. I think we're going there at some point, right? And Chip Kelly makes a ton of sense, right? Like he's exactly right. Why should UCLA softball travel to Maryland, to Penn State, to Illinois, like back? Like why do that? Why is Oregon going to have to fly all the way across the country? Why is Cal and Stanford have to fly to Miami to play conference games for all their sports? Obviously, football is easier. Football, you fly on Friday, you play the game, you go home. He's exactly right. Now, a commissioner of this power conference could be the same as a Roger Goodell, right? I mean, commissioner at the very top, different responsibilities, right? Because Goodell is answering to owners. Like that, the structure of that would be fairly interesting, Gabe, because I don't know what the commissioner would be in charge of, probably playing, playoffs, I guess. a general head of sort of everything, right? Communication, organization. The other thing Chip said in this, by the way, that was cut out was that there should be one TV deal for the whole thing. So instead of having Fox and NBC and CBS and Disney have a say in where we go, plus the CW's in this now, right? Apple TV supposedly wants in, maybe Amazon, and you have the ability to say, no, we're all together in this. We're all together, and we're going to end up. We're all going to. Now, I'm not sure he meant equal pay, Gabe, but that we're not leaving schools like Oregon State and Washington State behind, right? That we're giving enough money for teams to sustain, or maybe not the SEC and the Big Ten. That probably feels difficult to do in this system, quite honestly, to tell the Ohio State, Michigan, hey, man, we're going to equal revenue sharing. You have to share the money with the schools you don't want to share it with. That part feels like a little bit of fairy tale, unrealistic. But it's a. I understand the part of what he's saying here. The other thing he said too was at the very end of the clip that I saw was the players have to be compensated like their employees, yes. Which is something Jim Harbaugh has said before. And he's like, look. He mentioned Amazon or Nike is like you have the Nike subdivision and Nike just pays the players. The Amazon league and Amazon pays the players. We are going to that model. Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, mentioned last week, like, what if we gave the players $30,000? Yeah, everyone $30,000. There's so many lawsuits right now. There's so many things up in the air that this is what we're getting to. And the thing about it, Gabe, is I'm all for the players getting paid, but I don't know if people realize like what it'll become now that it's all different. It's going to be professional sports league, which is with younger football players. I mean, that's what it is, which I guess you could argue it is now, but it's going to change what the sport is. So if people are on board with that, to be my guest, the same people that were like, transfer portal, I love it. And now they're like, whoa. It's not, this is what you wanted. You want a transfer portal. This is what you fought for. I, over here, said, you know what? I'm not sure we should do open transfer. This is why we have guys decommit. Look, again, you can have multiple thoughts at once. One thought is players should get paid. They should get NIL deals. All good. If they want to leave, so be it. But I can also just be like, yeah, it's probably not the best thing for like the first sign of adversity to just bounce from a school and try to get paid somewhere else. When we've seen all through time now in the 2 or 3 years we've had the portal that most guys end up having to go down a level. It just doesn't work out quite the same. The top 1%, they're getting theirs. But, there's a whole middle class. And then the other part too, Gabe, that's not talked about enough, and we talk about this and others that cover college football, is schools are telling players to move the heck on. USC just had a 5-star defensive back decommit and a quarterback, by the way. And my comment to a USC friend of mine was like, if I was Lincoln Riley, or I was the new defensive coordinator, or the other defense coordinator they hired, or the new defensive back coach they hired who was a former coordinator, I would tell all Alex Grinch's players to get out of here. I'm like, all right, good, like leave. Like I would tell them, like, bye, get out of here. Like coaches are telling players to leave because they're allowed to. This is part of the process. We're enabling this process to happen. So there's a lot of things happening that I don't think people wanted. And I do wonder if we get to a sort of a super league thing where it's just football by itself, if people will enjoy that product.
Okay. I want to come back to the USC stuff in a little bit. Let's stay with Chip then for a moment. So in this scenario that he, I think, pretty clearly laid out, he is envisioning 64 teams that are like the top teams. And so should I be picturing what is currently the top 5 conferences and pretty much the teams that make that up? And then the next tier down is where you get those other conferences. And so what happens to schools that have been dominant in those smaller conferences that are maybe worthy of being in the top 64? Do they just become the best teams in the second division? How does that work? If you're independent.
It's basically what the system is now, right? And like I bring this up,
well, like take a BYU. I don't know if they're the right.
Well, they're a bad example because they're up now. They're like all those teams are up now. BYU's
Cincinnati. Give me an example. You know what I'm going for. A team that's always going to win 10, 11, 12 games.
So, okay, I'm glad you mentioned Cincinnati, BYU, UCF went up this year. Houston went up this year because when teams go up, they often struggle pretty quickly without look, UCF 6-6,
Yeah.
BYU 7-5, Cincinnati 3-9. It is Houston 4-8. It's hard to move up. The only two schools that have moved up again from like Group of 5 to Power 5 have had success are TCU and Utah. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of like, I don't even know who the team would be now because they're pretty much split up. But let's say a team like SMU. Well, they're going to the ACC, so bad example again. Let's say a Liberty, who is the highest ranked Group of 5 team this season.
Yep.
They play Oregon in the bowl game. If they had a Power 5 schedule, they would be 3-9, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they want that. Maybe that's what they want in the end. And maybe you could say, look, man, we take our lumps for a few years and we're good in 7 years because we just have to go through this now. But again, there's not a lot of success of that actually happening in the end. And so would you rather be 13-0 in your Group of 5 league or 3-9 in your upper league? You probably want to be 13-0 in your Group of 5 league.
Well, okay, so then Chip didn't get into this, but let's talk about it for a moment. Would it work the way English soccer works with relegation, something we've talked about here?
Where, I love it. Oh my God, I love it so much.
Yeah, like, so now the bottom dwellers of that upper 64 are playing their ass off to stay in the upper 64 because it's more prestigious. It helps their chances in the NFL. The people make more money, yada, yada, yada. There's a million reasons to want to be up there. And the guys at the top of the lower division are like, hey, man, if we finish top 5% among this group, we're going up. There's more money available to us players, to the program. You think that's how it would work?
I would love it so much if that happened. It would be, can you imagine there being like a bad year for Texas and they're playing Oklahoma at the end of the season and it's like a relegation game? It would be incredible. But I cannot imagine the top tier schools agreeing to a system like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe you'd have to have multiple years of failure for this to happen. But okay, fine. So then he also talked about sort of the notion of paying players directly and treating them like employees. And by the way, a lot of like, Bernie type stuff coming out of Chip Kelly here. Didn't see that coming. Taking care of everyone, bringing everyone up. The big guys don't get all the riches.
He's a Northeast guy. He's a New Hampshire guy. Maybe that. Right. Bernie's Vermont, right? So got that in the air.
Yeah, but so what? Like, how does this work in terms of the pay? Because I don't
know.
I've heard from a lot of people that football really is the protector of a lot of these other smaller sports. And he's saying it's more fair to those other sports not to have to schlep all the way across the country. But aren't they kind of getting left behind in this scenario?
Well, my take on that is that there would be extra money on top of what's spent now to pay the players. Okay. So you're not taking that money, that pool away from the players that they currently have. But yes, football carries the program. And look, there's Title IX implications in this, I guess. I'm so confused what Title IX actually means sometimes because everyone throws that word around. Like, I think the way it's applied now is there has to be an equal amount of scholarships or close to it between men's sports and women's sports. And therefore the same opportunities men and women are to have facilities and sort of have the same things. I think that's what it sort of is. And not every school is even Title IX compliant anyways. And I'm not sure that, so like, I don't even know what that means. People say, oh, that's going to screw up Title IX. I'm like, I don't know how that's applied in the situation. Yeah. But if, there's a lawsuit at University of Oregon, the club rowing teams sued the Oregon and the NIL program because it was a violation of Title IX the way it was handled. I don't know how that would apply here. I know someone will be like, oh, Title IX, Schwartz. Sure. Whatever you guys say. I don't know how it applies to this exact situation, but there will be pushback if they're only playing the football players. And I wonder how the pushback would go because we know what would happen, Gabe.
What would happen, Geoff?
No, we know that people would complain about it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That's a given. People will complain about anything ever, no matter what. Want me to complain about something right now?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Let's go back to what you hinted at. So Malachi Nelson, big signing for the Trojans, already on his way out. And it's because of kind of what you were getting at. I think, I don't know the specifics, but it certainly seems like he realized, oh, I don't just like walk into the starting role and get to be Caleb Williams day one. I have to compete. They might bring another kid in with transfer portal. Will Howard is reported from Kansas State. Like, it's not going to be easy. I'm not guaranteed anything.
Yeah.
And so he wants out before he's ever proven anything. What is that?
All right. So the portal is pretty fascinating to me, because sometimes it's okay to wait your turn, right? Like that happens, and you're just not ready to play yet. But there's a thirst, obviously, to get to the NFL as soon as possible. I mean, kids. Wednesday is signing day this week on the 20th. You're going to have kids commit that say, "I'm taking my talents to Oregon for 3 years." Like, it's already on their mind game. They're already thinking about it, right? And so if you don't play year 2, well, it's one less year to get to the NFL, right? So that's, I think, a part of this as well. USC is presumably bringing in Will Howard, the quarterback from Kansas State, which doesn't really match Riley's offense. I don't know what they're doing at USC. Another component of this is the NIL factor, name, image, and likeness, right? So there's two NIL buckets. One is the traditional NIL bucket, like a Caitlin Clark of Iowa, right? She has like 7 endorsements, as she should. She's fantastic. I just saw she got one from Gatorade. That's an advertising marketing deal based off your name, image, like this. Prize Picks is sponsoring this show today because I'm so beautiful and handsome, and they love listening to my voice. That's a name, image, like this deal, right? It's for me. The other NIL deal that we hear about, we know about, is players basically getting paid to go to a certain school, right? There's these collectives. Go to USC, go to Oregon, go to A&M, go to Louisville, go wherever. And once you get here, we'll give you X amount of money in some sort of salary structure. And it's legal. It's not illegal. A lot of schools are not following up on that game. And when you are told, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, and then you're not starting the quarterback, you're like, I'm out of here. Go somewhere else to find that money, right? That's the business right now. And if you are Malachi Nelson, first of all, you weren't starting the bowl game because I believe Miller Moss is going to start the bowl game, right, for USC in a couple of days. So he's not starting the bowl game, and they're bringing another quarterback to compete with him. And there's another 26 guy committed to USC, a 5-star quarterback, I think, too. Like, quarterback's never a problem at USC.
No.
So that's what's happening. The portal's being used by players to, A, get more money, B, more playing time, sometimes both. Coach leaves. But here's what the portal was supposed to be used for, okay? Oregon got a commit today from Northwest football. Northwest Missouri State football. He's a Division II All-American running back. 6'2", 220, rushed for nearly 1,500 yards last season. That is what the portal was supposed to be used for, right? Where you have players at a lower level that are going up. Maybe a guy's a backup for 4 years, also be a starter somewhere else. The portal was always going to end up the way it is now without any guardrails, which we saw happen. That's what the portal is supposed to be used for. And we're seeing, Gabe, too, that outside of quarterback, the Power 5 to Power 5 transfer, it's hard to get that one right. It's hard for that guy to come in and be really good. There are certain examples out west. I mean, we both Pac-12 guys, Bear Alexander, Latu. I mean, there's examples of guys that are impactful players, that are transfer portal players. The one that we're finding, to me, that hits a lot, again, very small sample size, is sort of the FCS player, this kid, Northwest State, Missouri, going up to the big time. Or Group of 5 player who's just, goes to Memphis, oversees expectations, Gabe, and someone signs him at Alabama. Boom, that kid's good, right? Like, but the Power 5 to Power 5 thing, we're not finding a lot of impactful players. So it's kind of interesting to see how teams are building. Colorado has 14 guys in the portal. Like, you learned your lesson last year, man. Like, they didn't work last year. USC tried to portal 2 years in a row now in defense. How's that working for USC? To me, it still comes down to you just have to build in high school recruiting for the most part.
Yeah, point taken. The other name I wanted to bring up, and there'll be a lot of them, and it'll be exciting to see where some of these kids go. But KJ Jefferson, who, the few times I paid any attention to him over the last couple of years, looked like you could easily see somebody saying he's the best quarterback in the country. Now, I haven't heard anyone say that in a little while, but there was a moment at the beginning of the last couple of seasons where it seemed possible. A, do you know where he's headed? And B,
No.
like, shouldn't that be the path? Go from like mid-tier-ish SEC type team to top of another conference team, like, and chase a championship?
I don't think Jefferson is that good as a passer.
All right, so maybe I'm overrating him, but pretend what I said is all true. Is that another version of what you're getting at? A guy who's like better than the team he plays for and could go be a Heisman contender in the right offense.
Well, Bo Nix, right?
Yeah, Bo Nix is a perfect example. Thank you.
Michael Penix, yeah. Quarterback, though, Gabe, we're finding the hits are happening Power 5 to Power 5. Like, they're happening all the time. Look at the Heisman, right? You had 3 transfer portal players. Jane Daniels went from Arizona State to LSU. Yep. The playoffs, Quinn Ewers and Michael Penix, a crossover there between Heisman and playoffs. I think the last 5 of the last 7 Heisman winners were transfer portal players, right? Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jane Daniels, Joe Burrow, and someone else is in that mix as well. So, like, that's portal quarterbacks are what's happening. Very quickly, I know we're about to end the show. Did you see the hit Saturday on Michael Pittman Jr.?
Yeah, scary.
So they suspended the Steelers defensive back for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
that feels like aggressive, though. No, 3-game suspension. What?
I think it's one of those things where like your eyes just you can't unsee it, right? So it's probably what he did is probably technically has no worse intent than all kinds of other hits that don't have the same result, but it just looked so unnecessary and so brutal. And Pittman's body bent in such a way. It was a very bad combination of facts.
It looked bad. No, I know, but I feel like I guess I'm reading the statement by John Runyon being in charge of punishment is pretty funny. His dude was like the most like badass physical right tackle who probably would have suspended himself at some points in his career. He was not a dirty player though. He just was a big old hoss. I guess he had multiple prior violations, so that's like the Kareem Jackson thing for the Broncos. I just think these defensive guys, man, like, what are you supposed to do when Pittman goes in the air? You just don't hit him, I guess. I don't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't either, and I feel for everyone involved. And you got to punish people when they break the rules, but the rules do seem confusing. And I honestly think like what it really comes down to is we, the fan, are so used to seeing things in super slow-mo that we base our feeling off of watching something at like, a few frames per second. And this guy is making that play at full speed with, a face mask in front of him. Like, it's such a fine line between a great play and a dangerous play at full speed. And we watch it and we're like, duh, that's terrible. Shouldn't have done that. But like, I don't know how you're supposed to police this correctly.
And then I feel like too, that, if I were to go on social media and be like, yeah, I'm not sure that's a really dirty hit. It's not even worth saying that.
No,
just like not like, I'm watching the play right now. I guess you just like cut his legs from underneath him. I guess, and you just dive on the floor.
So, well, that's what I'm saying. And when you watch it, it's in slow mo. You're like, oh, just let him land and then hit him, or like he's not going to make the play, so just stay off him. But like in the middle of that play, he hasn't left his feet. You're leaving your feet. You don't know what's going to happen.
Can you imagine if you just let him catch the football and just stood there and was like, oh, well.
Right. Yeah, I know. You're cut. like that's the end of that.
Oh, man. And the hip drop tackle we're talking about eliminating in the NFL now too, which how do you police that? Like,
no idea.
I don't, geez. I don't know, man.
It takes a generation, right? You have to coach this stuff differently. It's just like the words we use. Like you just have to learn it differently in your formative years in a sport to not be doing it at the highest level. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Geoff. We've given people a lot of information to chew on, and you gave us some great picks, so thank you for that.
And the dog's actually sleeping now, so
the dog calmed down. That was nice.
Yeah, I got to take him on a long walk now. I get my steps in though with this dog, dude. He walks right next to me. It's like the best. It's so good. I like this dog.
I'm happy for you and the family. It seems like a very sweet dog.
We back on Friday. We went 1-2-2 this week in gambling. So we earned 2 points. So we actually were sort of 2-2. We had 2 pushes on games that we had +3, and they were both up 17-3 in the fourth quarter and didn't cover. So kind of a bummer on those. But we'll be back this week on Friday with some more picks. Enjoy the game tonight, guys. We'll be back on Friday. Take care, everybody.